go. Oh. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Tech Crew. Hey, everybody. We had some technical difficulties there getting things started, so I'm sorry for the delay. Thank you all very much for being here. Today, we are going to talk about how to deal with angry people. First, though, I am Dr. Ryan Martin. You may know me on social media as the Anger Professor. I'm a researcher who studies anger, why people get mad, and how to deal with it. And today, I'm going to talk to you about how to deal with angry people. And to do that, though, the first thing I like to do is explain to people why people get mad. So when it comes down to anger, a lot of times we tend to think, well, anger is just, it results with, you know, I got mad because so-and-so was messing with me, or I got mad because things didn't go my way. And it feels that way sometimes, and you can hear it in the language people use, right? It made me mad when so-and-so did this, or I got mad because. But the truth is, anger actually comes from a much more complicated place than that. So it starts, of course, with some sort of provocation, some sort of thing that happens. You know, stuck in traffic, you know, person doesn't call you when they say they're going to call you. Kids leave the milk out, right? Whatever, some sort of provocation. Related to that is your mood at the time of that provocation. So were you tired? Were you running late? Were you feeling, you know, stressed about something? Who knows? But some mood at the time also influences that provocation. And then you have probably the most important part, which is the appraisal. How did I interpret that provocation? What did it mean to me? So if I come home and the milk has been left out, and I look at that and I think to myself, oh, the kids, they do this all the time, right? That's an interpretation of what happened. That's my appraisal of that provocation. And the way I've articulated it, or the way I'm thinking about it, serves to potentially exacerbate the impact of that provocation or minimize it, right? Because I would think, oh, that's unusual. They don't typically make that mistake. And then I solve it, right? So how I interpret it makes a difference. If I get stuck in traffic, I can think to myself, oh, this happens all the time, and oh, my entire day is ruined. Or I can think to myself, you know, well, this isn't going to hold me up as much as I might think. It'll probably just delay me 5 minutes, or I can adjust my day, or something like that. But regardless, from that appraisal comes the actual emotion of anger. And that's the point at which we get angry, right? That's the point at which we're actually feeling that experience. And emotions like anger include physiological arousal. They include some types of thoughts that we have, and they also include some behaviors. And typically with anger, the behavior is a desire to lash out. It's a desire to yell, a desire to scream, a desire to punch something or someone. We don't necessarily act on it, but that is what we see as that desire to lash out. And that is that final piece, the emotional expression, what we do with that anger. And here's the most important thing here is that there are nearly infinite things we can do with our anger in a particular moment. We can, obviously, all those things I just mentioned, we can lash out, we can yell, we can scream, we can swear, we can fight, whatever. Sometimes people cry, sometimes they pout, sometimes they say, I'm fine, and deny their anger and go off to be on their own. Sometimes they channel it into problem solving. They try and use that anger to work toward a particular goal. Sometimes they just do the deep breath thing and try and resolve the anger that way. So nearly infinite things we can do with our anger when we're upset. So it's really important to understand this because this plays a role in how we deal with other people's anger. Part of what we need to know is why people get angry, because that's how we can deal with the angry people in our lives and know how to best address some of the challenges here. And that's what I want to walk through here, starting with number one, which is to focus on and prioritize de-escalation. And so this is, I think, a place where a lot of people make mistakes. In fact, I just had someone on social media point this out. I said I did one of those 4 things I would never do things related to dealing with angry people. And one of the things I said is try to de-escalate. And so, or try not to de-escalate, 4 things I would never do. And one person wrote back and said, I totally hear that, but I'm going to escalate, right? This is hard to do. It's sometimes really difficult to de-escalate in those moments. So how do you do it? So let's say there's a person, let's say you are a service worker, right? And you work at a restaurant or something like that, and someone is really angry with you. What are some things you can do to try and de-escalate? Well, a couple things. First is listen. Hear them out, engage in some of those, what we call minimal encouragers, things like, just kind of nodding along with, encouraging them to finish their story. You can pause and wait patiently and just sort of let them go for a little while. Then you can empathize, tell them you're sorry that happened to them, tell them you're sorry for the way they're feeling, whatever it takes to sort of communicate that you're disappointed along with them. And then you can work together to solve whatever the problem is. And this is assuming that there's something realistic that is the problem, right? So that you might be able to help them solve. What you don't want to do is what we call matching their tone, right? Or what we actually refer to sometimes as a complementary response, meaning they're yelling, and so I'm going to yell, right? I'm going to raise my voice along with them. You don't want to do that, right? Matching their tone encourages them to elevate their tone. You don't want to tell them to relax. It's never once worked. Never once in the history of the word relax has someone heard it and followed up by relaxing. You don't want to disregard their feelings. Try not to communicate, hey, you're wrong to be angry. That doesn't help people get there. And try not to get snippy. I know that all these things probably go without saying, but a lot of times people, when they are dealing with angry people, they get snippy. They do and say things that end up kind of exacerbating the problem. Thing number 2, and by the way, I should tell you, I've got my phone here. If you want to throw something in the chat, you are welcome to. I'm happy to take questions and kind of hear what people are thinking about or wondering. Number 2, and this is really important, is figure out your goal in the situation. I think about this a lot when I'm on the road, right? And someone's angry with me. My goal when I'm driving is always to get to my destination safely. It's always to get where I'm going in a way that is safe and I guess preferably on time. And once you embrace that as your goal and you decide to work toward that as a goal, it prevents you from doing a lot of things that aren't going to be productive. It prevents you from getting in, trying to get in altercations with other drivers, trying to cut them off, brake checking, giving them the finger or whatever. Once you figure out your goal and say, okay, this is what I want to do, then make your decisions based on what's the best thing that'll help me move forward. What sometimes, admittedly, what we want to do isn't the same as what we should do. And so the revenge drive can be really, really strong. But ultimately, it's always going to be better to try and focus on what is my goal in the situation? How do I get there? And you can think about that when you are at work and someone is angry with you, when a client is angry with you. You can think about, okay, what is my goal and how can I work toward it? So we talked about diagramming an angry incident. One of the things that's really important to do when you're dealing with an angry person is to actually try and diagram that angry incident from their perspective. And what I mean is to actually think about, okay, how does their anger, what was the provocation? What was their mood at the time? How are they interpreting things? And the reason this is so valuable, it's actually sort of twofold. One, it helps us build empathy. By understanding what they're experiencing, it helps them build empathy. It helps us understand where they might be coming from. The other piece, though, is it might help us figure out where to intervene. So, for example, if I think, okay, here's the problem, is that they are appraising this situation in a particular way, maybe there's a way that I can correct that. Maybe there's a way that I can help them see that. if if the issue isn't that they're appraising things incorrectly, and then I can focus on some other thing. I can focus on, okay, you're right to be angry, so let's figure out how we can solve this. So diagramming that incident helps people better understand how to intervene. It's really important to ask at some point, is their anger justified? Did I do something wrong that I need to make right? A lot of times what happens is we get really hung up on, well, they're really angry and maybe they're even behaving badly. And because they're behaving badly, I now am feeling so defensive that it's hard for me or I'm so angry back at them that it's hard for me to actually ask myself if their anger is justified. But it's really important for us to take a mature approach and say, yeah, I screwed up, and the fact that they're behaving badly doesn't change the fact that I screwed up. I need to change that, and I need to make something right. Number 5, also easier said than done, but is to stay calm. Again, I mentioned this before, but we have to think about this in terms of these quote unquote non-complimentary responses. So this helps us de-escalate. And so to say a little bit more about non-complimentary responses, what it is because we have this tendency to match other people's tones. So when a person's yelling at me, my tendency is to yell back at them. But what we see is that if we can embrace a non-complimentary response, so we actually lower our voice or get things a little softer, we actually encourage them to lower their voice and get a little bit softer, right? So by staying calm and by taking deep breaths, by staying focused on the moment, we actually can find ways to decrease their elevation, or to de-escalate them that way. Number 6 is to find ways to reach those people who won't communicate. So one of the things we know is that not everyone who is angry yells and screams, right? So as I said before, there's infinite ways to express their anger. Sometimes people pout, sometimes they cry, sometimes they might withdraw. And it can be really hard you might have a friend or a sibling or a parent or someone who is angry with you, and their approach has been to essentially check out. One of the things that can be helpful is to think about, because they're non-responsive, is how can I reach out to them? How can I connect with them, especially if they're being non-responsive? So one of the things I advocate is sometimes it's actually best in these situations to, I guess, give people space, but also to empower those people to connect with you. And so this is a case where maybe I would send them an email or a text or a phone call and leave a message and simply say, hey, I know you're upset. I would love to talk about it, but I understand that you might not be ready. And when you are, please let me know, right? Send me an email, call me, text me, we can get together, whatever. But let's make a point of getting together once you're ready. And then after that, maybe you check in once more, or maybe you don't. Maybe you just say the ball is in their court. If they wanted to reach out, they would. I don't necessarily need to keep trying. So find ways to reach people who aren't willing to communicate with you or don't want to communicate. Number 7, deal productively with angry emails, right? One of the things we know right now is that a lot of anger occurs electronically, right? You see it on social media, obviously. You see it in emails. You see it via text. You see anger in all of these different places. And there's a couple different reasons for this. But what we know is that email or electronic communication really exacerbates a couple things. One, it leads to these impulsive responses. It's so easy to send an email. It's so easy to send a text. people can do it without really fully thinking. And that is even made worse by those feelings of anonymity. We know that people who, when they are in a place of feeling either being anonymous because they're online or feeling like they are anonymous, we know that that feeling of anonymity encourages people to do and say things that they wouldn't otherwise do or say. And the interesting thing here is a lot of the research shows that people claim that if they're that being anonymous doesn't change anything. They claim that, well, no, I would say it anyways. But in reality, that isn't true. If people think that they are anonymous, if people think that if there's this distance between them and other people, they're inclined to do and say things they wouldn't otherwise do or say. And that's gonna be true for us too, that like in those situations, we might be inclined to do or say things we wouldn't otherwise say. So what you want to do is always take some time. So wait before you send things, right? Have what you write read. Get another perspective on it. Have a trusted friend or a trusted coworker or someone sit down and read it and make sure that it's good. In professional settings, you want to maintain professionalism. I think that is regularly a challenge for people. They say or do things that they wouldn't otherwise say or do. And then it goes back again to considering your goals. Make sure that you're really paying attention to what you want the outcome to be. If your goal is to get some sort of resolution, then make sure everything in that email is about getting that resolution. And if your goal is to make the other person feel bad or disrupt things, well then don't send it, right? Find another way to communicate, but make sure that you're focused on those goals. Number 8 here of 10 is to avoid character assaults. A lot of heated conversations can get really, really ugly. People do and say things that they later regret. And what you want to do is really find ways to try and like stay on track in the conversation. And this, on the surface, this seems really obvious. Like, of course, I want to avoid character assaults. But the thing to realize is that lots of things can come across as character assaults that aren't necessarily intended that way. So if you've ever said in a conversation like, "Oh, you always do that," right? When you're doing that, you're taking the behavior and you're whatever they've done, right? Maybe it's not listening, maybe it's leaving the milk out. When you say you always do that, it's no longer just about this incident. It's about a general theme, right? It's about a general a much broader situation. And so you want to avoid those kinds of things that end up feeling like character assaults. Try and stay focused on the specific behavior, the specific thing that happened in this case, and not the broader context or the broader personality traits of the person you're talking to. Know when to disengage. It's really important to remember that sometimes people, sometimes it's just a mistake to try and keep going. That people aren't able to to communicate maturely. They're too mad to have this conversation. They don't want the same kind of resolution as you, and it is okay to hit a point when you say, I guess we'll have to agree to disagree. It's okay to just end that conversation or say, we're going to stop this for now and we're going to come back and talk about it when things are a little more settled. That's an okay situation, and it's okay to know when to disengage. The things that I would say to think about when it comes to disengaging, one is to think about um, uh, uh, like, do they want the same resolution as me? Are they working toward that resolution, or are they just so mad that they want to, uh, take it out on me? What is their goal? And do I think that I can kind of be aligned with that goal? And if I can't, then I shouldn't keep going. And finally, these things work best when we use them together. So these strategies work best when they're combined, when we're able to stay calm, when we can think really clearly about our goals, when we can decide if if their anger is justified or if I really made a mistake. Trying to put these things together into one sort of final creative or useful package is what's most valuable. Okay, so I want to say thank you very much for being here. I do, if you want to keep in touch, you can find me at Anger Professor on social media and all these other places. Also, if you want to scan, that is my, you can get access to my contact info. You can also get a performance and wellness guide and some other sorts of things. So, and I'll put that information in the chat as well. Thank you very much for being here. Take care.